I wore a wig to school once, and they said no headgear was allowed.
How did
spider web
was it
tights.
obvious that it was a wig?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was
It was a
having
terrible
fun.
wig.
See, this is exactly why we have them on the show, and this is what makes them fun.
You're listening to KXVS, the voice of Stockton, 92.1 FM.
This is Darius Oliver, and you're listening to 92.1 KXVS, the voice of Stockton.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Da 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 da, shabba da do da da da, shada da dee da da da, shada da dee da do da da da, shada da dee da da da, shada da be da do da da da, shada da be da da da, yeah, shada dee da, Chef Tobias Cooks.
The voice of Stockton on KXVS presents Women in Business with your host, Chef Cooks.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Chef Tobias Cooks here with the voice of Stockton. Yes, I am excited this morning. How are you, Governor Don?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Chef.
How was your weekend?
Excellent, excellent.
All right, thank you for joining us in Women in Business. Are you ready for this conversation today?
Yes.
I am excited about this conversation. Thank you for joining us live. Chef Tobias Cooks here. You can visit me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Also, you can log on to thevoiceofstockton.org. Find out all the events that are going on this October. We have some great, exciting events going on. Also, October 27th, come on out to the function. Yes, the Voice of Stockton will be there. We'll have lots of entertainment, foods, and everything that's going on for October. Yes, also visit us on the Voice of Stockton YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all of the other outlets. Today, I am super excited for our guest. This is going to be a great conversation, informational conversation, and one conversation that you can please share. We would like to talk about this conversation, especially coming up in our elections and everything that is going on. So let's go ahead and get into it. My guest today, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Iserica Magana. I am here representing a nonprofit organization called End Rape Culture, ERC. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, we met just this past Friday. We met at a great event, the Stockton Women's Task Force event. Shout out to Zulima and Jasmine, Victoria, Rebecca, Donna Marie. It was at Tosco. It was a wonderful event. We had great women of Stockton that was out there. Shout out to Joy. We did some wonderful things in the Stockton community with the Women Task Force. Lots of women were able to come out and share their poetry and their art and different talents, and it was just a super great event. You sat right next to me. I started a conversation as normal. One thing led to another, and here we are to talk about this great organization that you are now bringing to Stockton. All right, so let's get into it. Founder of the organization, could you tell us a little background about that?
Yes. Okay, so End Rape Culture was founded in South Florida by Yesenia Urena. She is an amazing person overall and a survivor of sexual assault herself. She's really passionate about educating the public on sexual assault and decided to take on and start this great initiative that we can all be part of. I was fortunate enough to be granted an internship opportunity during my summer there. And what I learned after that experience was three main things. So after that experience, it reinforced my passion for women's rights and for women's empowerment.
Yes.
And it also helped me open my mind as to what feminism really is.
Yes.
How I interpret it is respects for other choices, for
Yes.
others' choices, and liberation, whatever that may look like to different people.
Yes.
And the last thing, which is really personal, ERC, and I'm forever thankful. It helped me deal with past experiences by giving me that guidance and that force that I needed to finally take the first step in my personal healing.
Yes.
And so with all that said, I feel like it really impacted the way I see things, and I really want to bring that to my community because I am from Stockton.
Yes.
And I want to bring that positivity and that openness to talk about sexual assault in our community because it is needed.
Yes, it is. And I myself is a survivor as well. Survivor from the age of 5 years old, 13, and 16 years old. When I was coming up, we didn't have any programs. We didn't have any type of nonprofits, or at least that was available in my community. I was not able to really understand that conversation of sexual assault and what it meant until I was about 19 years old. Until then, it was something that we kept secret. From my generation, it was something that was swept under the rug. You didn't say anything about it. You still went on with your life. You still put a smile on your face. And it's very excited in this time. I would say for the past 20, maybe the past 20 years have been very exciting for me because there's been lots of women to come up and raise their hands and say, no, this is not normal. You don't have to go through this and be silenced. You can still live a normal life. You can still become a mother. You can still become a sister. You still can become a wife. You can still become a part of the community. This is not something that has to be dogmated over your head and you no longer have to be labeled for it. So I'm really excited about this now because not only are we here to give rehabilitation to women that have been through this, but we now can open the conversation for women who have not experienced this. Thank you. And to continue for us not to have our girls to experience this through education. So this is wonderful. Okay, yes, so let's go on.
Okay, so before I introduce what ERC actually does and the different workshops and services that we provide or that we aim to provide,
Yes.
I want to talk about why.
Yes.
Why we do what we do. And currently, ERC is powered by a small group of people. So I went ahead and asked them for their whys. So I'm going to go ahead and share that first. So this is the why from Yesenia Irina, who is the founder and director of ERC. She says she does this to challenge society's ideas of what a good woman should be. ERC, like feminism, holds that women should be free to speak up, to be bold, to be empowered. Freedom from societal pressures to gender roles for everyone can change lives and indirectly prevent sexual assault and save survivors. And I also have some words from Steven Vasquez, who is the Jiu-Jitsu self-defense instructor, and he is also one of the biggest sponsors, so we are very grateful for everything that he has contributed to the organization. His why is to make women feel empowered, comfortable with setting boundaries, and to help them be safe.
Yes.
Last but not least, I have the words from Edward Urena, who is ERC's professional photographer and also an educational consultant. So he says, because I have a mother, sisters, and a girlfriend, because I feel people using positions of power and physical force to achieve what they want is disgusting. because real men are feminist. And all sick perverts need to understand that they are ill and that we will not sit back and stay quiet.
All right.
Yeah. I also put together my own why, so I would like to share that
Yes,
as well.
please. And here's your platform right here.
Okay. So, I want to exert my right to be free, as much as I want others to have that same experience. I want people to feel free to be themselves without being shamed for it, without being assaulted for it, or afraid. At multiple times in my life, I did not feel free or in control of my body because I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know that I could say no. And after that, I didn't know how to cope with not knowing how to say no. So I sat with it in silence. Again, thanks to ERC, I am on the right track to healing myself and overcoming some experiences that have marked me. With that said, I want to provide the same guidance that I received through this organization to many people in the Stockton community as well, because it's all about healing. And I think that the work we do through ERC does just that. It helps people heal and be open. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for sharing your story. You know, it takes bravery, especially such a young age as yourself, traveling through life, trying to understand these things and these reasonings and why this takes place. For me, learning about other women and other cultures, other societies, learning how this type of behavior in this culture is part of the normacy in a lot of cultures. Can you talk about that a little bit as well?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and share one of the things that ERC does, which is try to dismantle societal ideas and ideals that contribute to rape culture. And one of those concepts is the normalization of sexual violence.
Yes.
So we put together educational workshops that kind of address that. We build them for different age groups, and we custom make them for the audience that we're presenting and the topic that they want us to present on. So to answer your question, we put together a workshop on toxic masculinity. We presented this to a group of young boys, middle school, high school aged. And we talked about the normalization of sexual violence in pop culture.
Yes.
We also addressed the negative results of the objectification of the woman's body and suppression of emotions. All of these concepts are concepts that young men are dealing with that have become normalized.
Yes.
We are immune to them, therefore we don't see them as a problem. It doesn't really stand out as a problem, but it is a problem, and that's why we need to start talking about this. So the purpose behind this workshop was just that, to shine light on concepts that we face every day, that messages that were sent every day, and that kind of just go over our heads. So calling attention to these things that contribute, at the end of the day, contribute to rape culture.
Yes.
And it's in ways that we don't even notice. So the purpose behind this workshop was to kind of raise awareness and to promote being conscious consumers of media, of pop culture, and the messages that are being sent to us through whatever filter.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of it stems from our music and messages that we get even in our commercials. Like the sexy girl in the commercial in order to sell a particular product, or even sexual overalization. Like for some of us parents, we can't even allow our children to watch certain type of shows, and we think it's a children's show, and then something to pop up, you're like, oh Lord. There go that show. Like now you can't even watch that show anymore. You know, so that's very important to recognize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then to add on to your comment about how the woman's body is used to sell, that kind of that tactic kind of objectifies women, and the most negative thing that I see from that and relating it to rape culture is that once someone is no longer seen as a human,
Yes.
it's easier to hurt them. It's easier to attack them.
Yes.
So that there's the issue once again, and it's being perpetuated through the media,
Yes.
through our consumption.
Absolutely. And it goes far beyond just sexism. It goes into racism as well. And then it goes into class.
Capitalism.
You know, and so that actually goes far beyond. It's far beyond of what we, you know, see it is. But I think it's very important now in this generation of beautiful children that are coming up. They're coming into the STEAM, the science, technology, engineering, arts program. Our children are starting to see, they're not starting to see too much of the black and white anymore. Now they're filling in the grays. And they're questioning, well, why do we have to be separate? Or why is there a gender balance? Or why is it this? Why is it that? How come it's just this is that? How come it can't be a blend or a marry of all things? And I think that this education for young people, I think there should be more education for us as well, for my generation and generation that's older, because we tend to put stigmas on gender. We tend to raise our sons, you're this, you're that, you don't show that you cry, you don't do this, or we raise our young women to marry the richest man or marry that guy that's going to take care of you, instead of us saying to our young women, and I'm not preaching, I'm not preaching, but and nowadays our generation is much different, because now we're raising young women that you could do just as what the guys can do. You could do just as what the men could do. You can go as far as running for president, you know, if you want. And then for our men, we're saying to them that it's okay to show your emotions. It's okay to love your children. It's okay to be more sensitive towards your sister, Juan. Be more sensitive towards your sister.
That's actually my brother's name too. But yeah, so that's what it's all about. What we want to achieve with these workshops, we want to break through those gender norms and those gender roles, and kind of open people's mind that we can do what we want regardless of our gender.
Yes. Can I ask you a question? And I ask you this question just because of your eyes being in the millennium generation. What do you think the fear is that we have, that I consider myself your auntie? But what do you think the fear that my generation older have to accepting gender, or accepting the concept of women versus women, boys? What do you think that it is?
So I have this conversation with my mom all the time. So
I like this.
I think it's all about it's different. It's just different, and for so long we have been tied to these traditions, and they're just hard to let go. It's about how we are socialized. Obviously, your upbringing is very different than mine.
Yes.
So you see me doing certain things, I don't think it's wrong.
Yes.
You might be like, okay, there she goes again, or you know. So I think it's just because it's so different. That's the only thing that I see. It's different. It's hard to let go of traditions. But at the same given token, I encourage people to be a little bit more open-minded, especially the older generation, because I personally really respect my elders, and I view them as role models.
Yes.
And I'm sure other young kids do too.
Yes. Yes, and I think that a lot of us, you want to chime in, Governor. I think that my generation, and even my mother's generation, we're curious. We do want to know. We do want to understand why is it now that the millenniums have proposed so much to us, and that generation have challenged us in ways far beyond that's a concept for us. And I think you're right that being stuck in traditions, especially as far as gender goes, because my generation, we came out of civil rights. We've conquered the racism. We've identified that. We've had so many discussions over that over the past 50 years. People had lost their lives for that, for equality, racism. Now we moved to gender. Now we moved to equality between men and women. And I think for us, because we've went through civil rights, I'm on the end of the Jim Crow law and the civil rights. Now moving into gender, we've been challenged in so many different ways to that. We're like, wait a minute now, wait a minute. Okay, so we just straightened out the whole black and white thing. Now we have to straighten out the women and the male.
Yeah, I was thinking it's really cyclical. I mean, think about the women's suffrage movement was, even though it's late if we think it historically, but that preceded the civil rights movement. So women getting the right to vote was before black people had the right to vote.
Yes.
We went through the civil rights struggle, but look at our world today. Look at the blatant racism that people have to deal with now, and now people are going back to the bold racism that was what we were fighting against during the civil rights era. And I think that with what's going on with the Me Too movement and gender equality and gender preference equality, not just male female, but sexual preference, these things are a long time coming.
Yes.
And part of the thing I think is fueling it is the fact that the internet now has made our world so much smaller, where somebody, when somebody says something now, not only does it go around the world in a day, people are responding to it in real time, but it used to be somebody could say, oh, I didn't say that and that didn't happen, and you would just it'd just be your word against mine. Now we have live fact checking, live, you could go right back to something that somebody else said just a while back. So the level of honesty that's required to be honorable, I think that's something that young people will look at, and the millennial generation look at, even though at the same time we have people now lying about stuff and bearing a false testimony or spinning things or framing things in a way that's knowingly deceptive is so common now. But at least now we're calling it out, where before it was just news.
Yeah.
That
was just like the 11 o'clock late night news that grandma set up and watched.
Of course, and it was propaganda and racism all laced up. And now, we have alternative outlets for information. So I think it's a very healthy process. And one thing that strikes me is that so civil rights happened. I was a kid when it was going on. It was the generation before me.
Yes.
But now, when I came to this country as a young person, so in the 80s, in the late 70s, I experienced lots and lots of discrimination. And we thought racism was getting better. Hip hop was a new thing. And, we had pro-black, pro-cultural hip hop. And so we thought, we were making progress. But all it took was to have a black president to have this racist backlash. So what it is it's this constant back and forth struggle. What they say, you take 2 steps forward and you take 1 step back. Well, if you even stop there, you're a step ahead of where you were.
Yes.
But if you keep on at it, you take 2 steps forward, get pushed a step back. If we understand this is the ebb and flow of societal change, then we understand how long it takes, how much effort it takes. So thank God for this next generation who have the energy, who have the awareness, who have the ability to communicate, and the confidence based on the fact that they don't have to just believe stuff. They can do their own research, and they can communicate with each other and build these strong coalitions, like with the March for Our Lives that happened because of the school shootings. So I'm very, very hopeful about it. To be honest with you, if that wasn't happening, I would feel very pessimistic about our future, because we just got here this announcement that we have like a hard date. Like if we don't totally reverse climate change and pollution and stuff in the next 12 years, there's going to be irreversible, catastrophic effects for our preceding generations. Well, that's a call to action, and we got to do something. Well, when it comes to this social thing, we can't just continue to sweep things under the rug, and also we also can't take a snapshot of the past and look at it with today's eyes without recognizing that the past had a different perspective.
Yes.
So I think really this is the first step, not the first step, but this is a necessary step to moving towards healing, to moving towards coming together. Because the truth of the matter is, you take a male over 40 in this country, and they did something in their life, that needs to be recognized by that person, that is not acceptable.
Yes.
And this was commonplace. I'm gonna just give you an example for you young folks to think about. When I was a kid in grade school, it was normal and acceptable to make homophobic jokes.
Yes.
And jokes about homosexuals, and it was accepted, and it was national figures, the top paid comedians, movies, television. This was just normal. And but now here it is, 30 years later, 20 years later, and we think differently about it. And those of us who used to do that kind of behavior, but we don't now, we are the progress. But people who today still want to hold on to that type of discrimination and bigotry, that is the issue that we're really addressing. It's not that something wrong happened before, but what are we going to do about it today? And do we accept that? And those of us who, have done things like that as in the past, do we say, well, are we going to justify that? Or are we going to say, no, that was wrong and we don't do that anymore?
Yes.
So that's really, like I said, if it wasn't for this movement, I would have no hope for this country. So I'm glad that, young people, we just had a group of kids sue the federal government for messing up their future because of the polluting the environment.
Yes.
So this is what we need to do. We need to hold people accountable, and it's not about getting everybody for everything they ever did. It's just about moving forward with progress.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. I'm going to go back and listen to that entire thing you just said. Absolutely. And that was one of the things why I wanted to do Women in Business, and thank you for allowing me to do that platform.
So happy you're
It's
doing
not because it's separating men from women. It's just that women, we have a different viewpoint, especially when it comes to business.
Different experience.
We do go through different experience. The whole Me Too movement is a huge part of that experience in business, the corporate world that we have to go in. Also, racism plays a big part as well.
Right.
And for me, it's a double whammy because I have to deal with racism, I have to deal with sexism, and sometimes it confuses me which one I'm battling. But what I wanted to say real quick before we get back to you is not that, the reason why I support this evolution that's going on, and the reason why I support this is because men and women are one. We are one.
Yes.
We just have different roles in being one. Women are we are mothers, and with mothers come the nurture,
nurturing,
nature, the wisdom, everything that goes into that. And then the men are protectors. They are the hunters and different things. And women, we can hunt too, and men could be nurturing too. We are one.
Right.
It's just our society that pulls us apart and make our roles as women dumbed down.
Right.
So when I see people, like you say, homophobic, that struggles with that, and they're saying, oh, but you're a feminist. I'm like, well, what's wrong with being feminine?
Right.
Does that make you any less of a male because you're feminine? Does that make a woman any less of being a woman because she's masculine? I mean, what? So when that conversation comes up with the millennium and they challenge us, you guys challenge us, I get excited about it because, like Don said, there's hope for the future. Now we're going to take a step back. We're going to say, look, rape is wrong because you have no control over another human being, but because of what our history has shown us.
Right.
And hip hop, I love hip hop, Don.
Yes,
I am a hip hop fan. Okay,
Of course.
I will break it down on the thing. But the sad part about the hip hop part is that the further that we got away from the true message of hip hop, we start getting into discrimination against women.
Right.
When did that happen?
Well, I mean,
like in the 90s, all of a sudden, hip hop turned into rap. And it was like one of the leading forces
of misogyny and discrimination.
Exactly. Not to get into that subject too much.
No, but I think that's worth addressing. Here's what I think.
I want to get back to Erica. Yeah.
Well, but this is also the same thing we're talking about. So here's what happened. Hip hop started in the alleyways, on the streets, in the hidden places, and it became. It came to the forefront through its diversity and energy.
Yes.
So hip hop is this great, spectrum of perspectives. But once it became commercialized and they started, wanting to, it's all about the money. So they said, well, what sells? So once you start being that perspective, what sells? What makes us money? Well, we know sex sells. We know conflict sells. The news. There's a phrase that says, if it bleeds, it leads. If it's bleeding, if someone's dying, then that's what we're going to put. Hey, tonight's news, somebody's dying. Somebody died. It's blood. It's awful. And so, we're as humans, we're curious about those things. So what happens is our curiosities are exploited, and then negativity and negative stereotypes are reinforced. So it's up to us as consumers. Right now, organic food is all the rage, and you can get it in every store. But 2 years ago you couldn't. 2 years ago, it was so hard to find organic anything. I found some organic water. So what it is the consumers demanded that. Consumers were like, hey, I'm going to start shopping different places. And people were selling stuff. Walmart was like, dude, we're losing money. And so Walmart committed to half their food becoming organic by 2020. So why would they make that commitment? Because the consumer led the discussion because they voted with their dollars. This is the same in this scenario. We need to reject things that are bigoted, that are harmful to our people in our community, and whether they have a client base or not.
Yes,
that shouldn't matter to us. We need to decide for ourselves, for our families, and for our communities that. And that doesn't mean that we'll ostracize somebody who chooses that as entertainment. This is America. We got our freedom of choice. But when you impose that on another person's life, then you become liable for your actions as well.
And I think that's the great part about us having a global world today is because it's easier for us to choose. Now we can choose. Now we can reject certain ideas and we can like you say, bring this certain type of awareness because now we have more than just the common media to do it. No longer do we have to submit to watching the news at 11 p.m. at night or reading the Sunday paper. Now there's other other outlets where we could get this information across. This is a great conversation. You didn't think about this, huh? Yes.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask Erica. First, before I ask you anything, I want to concur with Chef Cooks earlier about how courageous you are, and
Thank you.
and I could see that the passion in you, and I could also see that that your experience in life has affected you, and I think it's really beautiful that when we go through traumatic experiences. When whatever had to happen in the universe to make us not withdraw and not to hide ourselves, but instead to do the opposite, to reach out, to try to help other people who've experienced such a thing, to try to alleviate by awareness, by calling people out sometimes, or by basically having the courage to engage in the discussion. I want to give you all the honor and praise and I want to thank you for that and doing it in a dignified way.
Thank you.
That's really what needs to happen because what it is right now we're seeing a lot of defensiveness. I would point to like what you talked about, what's going on in the national stage. Right now there's people who national leaders who are defending people who we know as the accused.
But that's the old way. That's the old mentality, and that's what works
Right.
for them. That's their mechanism. But right now, they're being challenged back.
Right. And it needs to happen.
In our day, it was a conversation behind closed door. Like, we wouldn't even get the
Exactly.
television. We wouldn't even get, any kind of rebuttal. It'd be like, this is what was made and this is done. But now we have the millenniums that are stepping up,
Yeah.
and they're like, forget the reputation,
Yeah.
forget
No.
all of this. We're gonna call you out on this. This is the history. This is what you guys have been giving us. But at the same time, it's kind of like it's what you call that. What's that word? Start with a C. I'm always forgetting words.
That's all right. That's all right. Chef. Just describe it. Yeah.
It's almost like it's two things.
Right. Contradiction.
Contradiction.
Yes.
Exactly. It's a huge contradiction right now.
Definitely.
And because I worked for Google for 2 years, and because I was exposed to technology and I was exposed to the AI of our world, now our millenniums are like, wait a minute, this is a huge contradictive.
Right.
Like, how can we grow? How can we keep putting forth technology and putting forth AI and moving us along, but our world, our climate is messed up.
Right.
Our socialization is messed up.
Right.
Our capitalism is unfair to every single person.
Right.
And also the young women that are coming up, it seems like you're putting things in a way where women cannot take a part of the great change that's coming.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes.
And that's why I was saying that it's really great for us that these young people are taking this risk, and putting their energy into doing something that really it should have been done before, but there's all these powerful forces against it, and so what it is generations of people chipping away at the power, chipping away at it, chipping away till now we have a critical mass that really could do something. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, we're like on the same team over here, but I know that there's this strange opposition, and that you feel that. And I just wanted to ask you about that. Like, what is your experience with people who are opposed to the idea of gender equality, to the ending the rape culture, the people who are, they're, what is your experience with that? I mean, what do you find? What do you find is holding them back, or what are they? What is their agenda?
To address your question, I think it's kind of like my response will be kind of a broad statement, because I think it applies to any inequality.
Okay.
I feel like it's all about power. So people in positions
Absolutely.
of power are scared to lose their privileges and their power. And for a long time, women have kind of been underneath men.
Right.
We've been pushed down, like you mentioned
For
earlier.
6,000 years.
And
Yeah.
then the results of that are the gender wage gap.
Right.
Companies in unwillingness to cater to mothers. So anything related to a woman, I feel right now and for a long time has been shut down.
Right.
Has been shut down. And it's our duty to call it out and to make a change, because that's the only way we progress.
Yes, and I also want to say that a lot of my peers won't agree with me. A lot of people see this conversation, they will be like, "What are you thinking?"
Right.
Like, because of how I grew up. I grew up in the church and other things, so that plays a huge part of it. But for me, as being a mother of 2 girls and being a mother of 2 boys, also my experiences is growing up and dealing with sexual assault and molestation, and dealing with people from the type of environment I come from who's seen it as normal, pimps and prostitution was something that I grew up with in my community.
Right.
So now it's like there's nothing wrong with me wanting better for my children. There's nothing wrong for people like me to want to understand this so that I can contribute into making it better for the next generation. I might not agree with everything, but I do agree with equality between a man and a woman. And I also do agree with the gender. I think that gender has nothing to do with you as a person and what you can contribute to our society. So just to clear that up. But let's go into, you got your educational workshops and...
So the other things that we
Thank you,
do
Dawn.
through ERC, so a second component of our organization that we really aim to do is to empower women and survivors of sexual assault. And the way we go about this is by providing self-defense classes and heart-to-heart healing sessions. So I'll talk a little bit about the self-defense classes first. So the self-defense classes that we aim to offer are jiu-jitsu-based classes. And they kind of focus on this move in jiu-jitsu called the guard. And so this move is stimulating a person being attacked by an aggressor. So basically you're on your back. This is...
See, we call that crazy.
And
we call it, you know, I don't know karate, but I do know crazy. That's what I call it. But
Okay.
so go ahead.
So it's called the guard. And what it focuses on, like our trainer who put together the curriculum for the class, Steven, he says it's finesse over force. A lot of the times survivors of sexual assault report that they were physically unable to fight off their attacker. So with this technique, it's more so focused to disorient the attacker and escape, rather to get in a physical fight that we might lose.
Yes. And sometimes pay with our lives.
Exactly. Exactly. So another thing that we do with our workshops, we try to kind of give advice as to what's the best thing to do in that situation. But before we get into like the physical component in our classes, we also address not being afraid to set your boundaries and outspoken about it. So whenever you're in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, feel free to voice that you are uncomfortable.
Yes.
So a study revealed to us that some prisoners who have been attackers shared that if the person they attacked, had they said something to them, that would have diverted them.
Yes.
And avoided the whole situation. So we also try to instill that sense of empowerment to feel free to speak up when you're not feeling comfortable and set clear boundaries.
And that
whomever.
goes with everyone, even including the people you love.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's the hard part, because especially when someone you love, you're like kind of, but even if it's someone that you love, to speak up and let them know, I feel uncomfortable with this.
So yes, so these skills are transferable. They're not only pertaining to if you're in a situation where you might be attacked, but everywhere. Just having that confidence in speaking up for your rights to feel comfortable, and to have people stop doing something that's making you uncomfortable, whether if it's like in the workplace, in your home, with your family, with your friends. So that's one thing that we try to instill in the attendees who go to the self-defense classes.
Yes. What about knowing your rights, teaching women their rights?
Yes, so that's something we put together with our educational workshops, and I feel like that's one of our main objectives, to know your rights, to know that your body belongs to you, and that because some people don't know what coercion is, or like, for example, if a woman is asked to, have a sexual encounter, they say no. Again and again and again and again, and they finally say yes. That is not a like willing consent.
Yes.
That is kind of a forced consent because they said yes to stop the person from keeping
Exactly. Yes.
asking. So consent is a big thing that we also try to promote in everything that we do.
So Stockton, now you're bringing this to Stockton. What are some of the things what are some of the events that you're working on for Stockton?
Okay, so we do try to put together larger scale events that raise awareness about sexual assault and how to minimize rape culture in our immediate surroundings. So first of all, I'm going to talk about it's kind of an online movement that we have going on.
Okay.
It's a pledge to end rape culture campaign. It's really simple. So we put together a pledge. It's about 10, it contains about 10 items that we can do and stop doing that contribute to rape culture. So easy way to participate, log on to our website, which is ercnow.org. Click on our pledge tab and really embrace one of the tips that we give and incorporate it in your everyday life. If not all of them, that would be perfect. And there's simple things that go a long way. For example, one of the things we have on there is joking about rape or using the word rape out of context. Because when we do that, we kind of take away the real meaning behind it and we become immune to it.
Oh, trust me, I know about words, using certain words. And that's a problem now is that we do have certain words in our culture that we have become immune to. And you're like,
Yeah.
no.
So with our Pledge to End Rape Culture campaign, we try to give people the tools to help contribute to that larger scale.
Yes.
And by doing these things, we become a hero to all the survivors and great role models for the generations to come.
Yes.
So more specific in Stockton. So one of my biggest goals with bringing the end rape culture to Stockton is to organize a slut walk. So
when you say slut walk, I'm familiar with the slut walk, but for our viewers, people that are watching this, let's talk about that so they can understand that.
Okay. So the meaning behind a slut walk is to empower women and to free women from all the sexualization that has been tagged onto our bodies and just being free to have ownership of our bodies. So it's a woman empowerment movement. I know some look at it as kind of skeptical, but how it originated, it was after a police officer told a group of girls that if they stop dressing like sluts, then they will not be raped. So equating the way a woman dresses to the consequences. And that's absolutely...
It's the men that design and make the clothes.
There you go, too. So it's kind of like taking away that idea that the way you dress, like you deserve certain things because of the way you dress. That's what the slut walk kind of addresses. One of the primary focuses, but it goes beyond that. It goes into breaking out of gender roles or what is expected of a good woman.
Yes.
Because a lot of the time people equate modesty to self-respect. And like I said, I learned a lot about what feminism
I like that.
is.
Modesty is self-respect. That's a good one.
Yeah, so it's kind of breaking away from that idea.
Right.
Because all human beings deserve respect.
Right. Regardless, and I think that's something that happens all the time. That's something that we even heard, with the Supreme Court nomination, that kind of false reasoning. Like if a woman is dressed provocatively, or if she's dressed in a revealing way, it somehow excuses her abusing her. And if a woman is totally nude walking down the street, that doesn't give anyone the right to assault her or to take advantage of her or to force her into anything. And so really that's just kind of like a crazy notion that's been perpetuated throughout the years. Now, not to say that I wouldn't advise somebody that way. Look, hey, you're going to be over in that place, watch out, watch your back. Or you're going to be in this area, make sure you don't leave stuff in your car, or So there, we want to give people good advice. I got 5 daughters, so I'm going to say, hey, be careful about how you dress and who you're around because of what because of other people you can't control them.
Right.
But it's not like as if my daughter went to a party and she was wearing a dress with the split up to here and she was looking attractive, and then somebody did something to her like that. That's not an excuse. We want to prevent harm, but that doesn't excuse the harmer. Like, if somebody does, let's say you have your money hanging out your purse or your pocket and somebody robs you. Okay, yeah, so yeah, you did like let them know you had money.
Yeah, so
right?
blaming the victim.
But that didn't excuse the crime of
To
robbery.
happen. It's
Right?
just like walking past a bank. Oh, they have money. But
Right, exactly.
but
That would
the
be like
thing to
excusing
that-
robbing a bank because they got money. Exactly.
But the thing to that is that we have cultures where women are completely covered, and yet they still have the highest rate.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That is a great point, and I think that needs to be brought up. Like when
And then
people
there's
mention
other
it.
cultures where women don't even wear shirts or bras, and nothing happens to them because that's how men and women have been socialized.
Absolutely.
Right.
We do have cultures like that.
Exactly.
and they have the lowest of rape
Right.
in
exactly.
that community.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
or probably never heard of rape or what it is.
Right. That's the same. The boys will be boys things. Like now I'm gonna
She
say.
got excited.
Right. Like, and we literally heard that. Like, and here's the false dichotomy. You can prove somebody wrong in that mentality because all you got to do is when somebody thinks like that, they already discriminate. They're already
Right.
prejudiced and they're already bigoted. So all you got to do is turn the table. So, boys will be boys. So then that's your excuse for this person. So here's another person of a different nationality or ethnicity. Are you okay with how they behaved and you think that it's no big deal now? Oh, no, they should still be locked up. Well, then, boom, you just expose their hypocrisy. And then and in that process, if you do it the right way, hopefully they'll recognize that and, recognize their own bias.
Go ahead.
I just love everything you just said. I love the way you think. Yeah, so
That's what happens when you have kids.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's either you reject it or you want to help it. It's that kind of thing. Oh, I want you to be just like me and act like me and talk like me, or I want you to be better than me.
right.
So as our generation, we have to look at your generation and say, do we want you to follow in our footsteps as we were followed in our parents' footsteps? No, we didn't. We didn't follow in their footsteps. We did not, absolutely, or there'll still be Jim Crow to this day.
Right.
We fought against that as well. So we want you to be better than us. And this is and this is what comes out of it. It's hurtful, it's painful, but this is what's going to come out of it. And again, we need to get ready for the bigger elephant in the world. That's technology and AI.
Right.
AI does not care about race or gender or class. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah, AI. We're on AI right now.
Right, exactly.
AI does not ask you a survey of who you are. They just want to know if you're flesh and blood and you have a brain and are you thinking.
Right.
Nice.
Right.
Okay.
And can they sell you something?
Exactly. And that's a different form of control.
But that's an interesting point because, like, right now, like, think about the conversation around AI. There's a country, I believe Saudi Arabia is the country that has its first AI citizen. Now, think about this. It's an AI that's gendered as a female.
Yeah, it has rights.
That's their first citizen, right?
It has the right to speak.
But wait a minute. Now, we're talking about a country that the women in that country aren't full citizens, right? So that's interesting. We can't let artificial intelligence gain more rights than our actual humans.
Yes.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
And a conversation to everything that we invent is women first. That's a whole nother conversation.
Well, hey, my mom is a woman, so I'm half woman, right?
Nice.
And you know what? Like, whatever relationship you got with your parents, recognize where you came from. And if you don't recognize like where you physically came from, then you're probably going to make some huge mistakes, and you're going to make huge mistakes anyway. So we got to be cognizant of that. Everybody is born from a woman, And so not just older men, but young men, women, children, older women. We all need to look at each other with fresh eyes.
Yeah. So what are some of the resources and support that you're seeking here in Stockton so that you could bring this organization to us?
So some resources and support. Well, first of all, I want to build a team out here.
All right.
Since I want to expand. And obviously, we're always taking donations because that's how an organization runs off. But also support and openness as to like what ERC seeks to bring to our community in terms of the messages that we want people to take away. Just come to our events with an open mind.
Okay.
I'm planning out a month full of events for April, so fingers crossed I'm able to like partner and work with community members who are willing to volunteer and help out to put this together. Yeah, that's what I have so far.
All right, great. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much for coming by. This is a great conversation. This could be an uncomfortable conversation, but it's a very much needed conversation. I also wanted to say that the rape culture does not just extend to women, that it extends to men as well.
Right.
Young boys, unfortunately in our country, there's more and more reported of molestation and rape that goes on with our young men as well.
Right.
So that's something that needs to be addressed just as well. Rape is rape. I worked San Francisco City and County. I worked in special education, and we dealt with pedophiles and rapists and stalkers. So that's why I have extensive knowledge in this. That a lot of the violators are victims themselves. And there's victims through all different types of ways. Right now, what we're describing is being victims of media, music, and just the whole idea of our country telling us that this is wrong, this is not it. But then you go and do the opposite when you put someone in office.
Right. Great point.
Huge contradiction.
Great point.
So we need young people as yourself to step up and say, no, that's not right. It's not right. It's not right. And we need more people of my generation, older generation, to have an open mind and say, look, this is our generation that's going to go forth, moving our world into a new place. And we have to guide you. We do have to reprimand you sometimes, and sometimes we do have to say, no, that's not the right way. But there is a common ground for us to look at it eye to eye and give it some foundation and basis. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just want to congratulate you. Hopefully the resources that you'll get, back-ends from churches, from other non-profit organizations, from schools. So anyone out there that's listening that want to take part in this, your organization, if you could please contact Erica, we'll have all her information there for you to contact her. I have some people in mind just sitting here thinking myself.
Thank you.
That this is something that's much needed, especially in this community.
Right. ERCnow.org.
Yes, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, let's continue this conversation. This isn't something. This isn't a one-up. This is something that's ongoing, and I think that also there's still a lot of folks who need to, they have healing that they need to get to, and by being open enough about it, at least to make ourselves vulnerable enough for somebody else to be able to talk to, and somebody else to be able to, get some much needed healing, but also, the recovery, right? This is not something that, the whole thing about ending rape culture is also about ending the stigma, that the victim bears. You know, and then eventually, we need to heal this all across the board. You mentioned, how common it is. The statistics is like females in America 1 in 3, males in America 1 in 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's still, that's a that is,
and it's rising.
Yes. So
and a lot of them don't report it because of the stigma
So
and
we
the shame
need,
that goes behind it.
Exactly. So that's why we need to continue these conversations.
Yes, and obviously something's going on because a violator is a victim itself.
That's right.
There's no way you just wake up and say I'm going to be a violator. This is something that you was exposed to, pre-exposed to yourself.
Right.
And that plays a whole part in mental illness and different things of that nature as well.
Yeah.
But the whole point of it is that women, we are in the age right now where the woman has a voice. We have the attention, we have the microphones, we want to be heard. Also, with women in business, there's a huge climb of women entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And a lot of women are becoming entrepreneurs, becoming CEOs, becoming founders of nonprofits, is because of there's only so far that we can go in a corporate world.
Right.
So we have to create that world, and we have to create that platform ourselves. And dealing with your organization, this is one of the platforms in Women in Business that we need to have. We need to have these conversations. And we, as women in business, do need to be a part of this, because if we want our young women to become entrepreneurs, if we want them to become independent, then it's conversations like this for self-healing and self-awareness so that we can continue to be women in business. Yeah, we did. Now we can have ice cream. Yes, Chef Tobias Cooks, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. Please share this conversation. I encourage every single person that is listening, please share this conversation. It's a great conversation. We'll be back next week. Women in Business with Chef Tobias Cooks. Say your name and information again.
Erica Magana, and you can check us out on ercnow.org. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, visit the Voice of Stockton. Remember, share, click, share, like, donate the voiceofstockton.org. You can see us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Chef Tobias Cooks. I will be back tomorrow with the cooking show. I'm so excited about that. Yes. But today, please go ahead. Please share this conversation. Yes. Let's get the awareness out. Let's continue the conversation. And Don, I guess we'll bring you back on. Get some more events, what's going on. This is a great conversation that we need to continue, especially with our young women and our young men. Chef Tobias Cooks, thank you so much. Enjoy your week. The Voice of Stockton.
Da 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 shabba da do da 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 shabba da dee da 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 shabba dee da do da 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 shabba dee da 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 shabba dee da do da 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 shabba dee da 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 Shabba-da-dee-da, Chef Tobias Cooks.